When Drew Sidora has to physically plant herself between two grown women on a cast trip to Scotland, you know something has gone terribly wrong. Porsha Williams and Shamea Morton, best friends since childhood, were reportedly seconds away from throwing hands. But here's what nobody seems to be talking about amid all the reposts and sensational headlines. This wasn't a sudden explosion. This wasn't two women randomly waking up one day and deciding to throw years of friendship in the trash for the sake of camera time. This was the final detonation of a bomb that has been ticking for years. And if you trace the fuse all the way back to where it first sparked, you may find it wasn't at the reunion, or during season 16, or even during filming. It may have been lit the moment Shamea decided she wanted to be on Real Housewives of Atlanta. The second she stepped into a world where friendship is currency, conflict is content, and relationships are viewed as storylines waiting to happen, the countdown began, whether either woman realized it or not. If you only watched season 16, you watched the friendship quietly crumble in real time. You watched Porsha and Shamea go from inseparable to strained to finally just barely civil. Season 16 was uncomfortable to sit through in a way the show hasn't been in a long time. Not because the arguments were the loudest or the fights were the wildest, but because it was the deterioration of something real. It was the kind of slow fracture between two people who genuinely cared about each other, and that type of conflict feels different, heavier, more tragic than the usual shade and wig-shifting kind of drama the franchise often thrives on. Then came the reunion, a space that traditionally serves as the emotional climax of a season, the moment when things are confronted, clarified, apologized for, or at least aired out in ways that allow everyone to move on. Except this reunion did none of that. There were no breakthroughs, no real apologies, no mutual vulnerability. Just a tension so thick it could suffocate the room, and a coldness that made it clear both women were leaving with guards up, trust shattered, and their hearts closed off. But the cameras eventually stop filming, the lights go down, the glam squads leave, and in most cases, the audience never sees what happens after that. Yet what happened after season 16 wrapped was arguably more telling than anything captured on Bravo. Weeks later, Shamea posted a video unlike anything we're used to seeing from Housewives cast members. It wasn't a subtweet, it wasn't a shady Instagram story, it wasn't a staged photo shoot or a press interview. It was a prayer video. Shamea stood there, with her mother literally laying hands on her, and publicly apologized to the entire cast: Porsha, Drew, Angela, Brett, Kenya, Cynthia, Kelly, and even Phaedra, who barely appeared on camera. Her voice shook as she asked for forgiveness for insults, for wounds she may have caused, for making anyone feel inferior. She talked about wanting to start fresh, about hoping her prayer would enter their hearts and their households, and then she ended the video by saying, "That's a wrap on season 16. Except, as it turns out, it wasn't a wrap, not even close. Because as the months went on and season 17 went into production, the real story hadn't even been told yet. And when the Neighborhood Talk dropped their exclusive report, the internet realized that season 16 was merely the opening act. According to the report, the real drama, the moment when words escalated into nearly physical confrontation, happened during filming for season 17 on a cast trip to Scotland. The trip itself was supposed to be the kind of Housewives field excursion where the backdrop becomes part of the fantasy. Ancient castles, whiskey tastings, dramatic scenery perfect for confessionals, and scenic B-roll for Instagram. Instead, it became the setting for two childhood friends nearly destroying each other. Kyle from the Neighborhood Talk spelled it out clearly. He said he keeps his ears to the streets, and the tea brewing in Atlanta involved Porsha and Shamea specifically. Their friendship had deteriorated before viewers' eyes in season 16, but season 17 apparently documented the fallout continuing in ways that made last season look tame. According to Kyle's source, during the Scotland trip, Porsha and Shamea got into a heated, nasty argument, And not the cute housewives kind of argument where someone raises their voice and another person storms out dramatically for pacing purposes. This was the type of argument where voices rise simultaneously, bodies move closer, and everyone in the room knows that once someone crosses that invisible line of personal space, things stop being verbal and start being physical. The source claimed it got to the point where the two were about to put paws on each other, which is reality television language for they were seconds away from swinging.
That's when Drew Sidora, of all people, intervened. Drew physically positioned herself between the two women before the situation crossed into actual violence, and that image alone is wild when you really think about it. Drew Sidora, who has had her own messy storylines, her own drama, her own vulnerability arcs, and her own conflicts, suddenly became the one voice of reason in a room full of chaos. Drew, who is often in the center of her own emotional storms, became the literal barrier between two former best friends on the brink of a full-on housewives brawl. The situation was so tense, according to the report, that Drew stepping in may not have just prevented a fight, it may have prevented a moment that would have defined the entire season and potentially ended relationships and reputations permanently. But now, let's talk about the part everyone whispers privately but refuses to say publicly, the timing. Because the timing of this exclusive being dropped wasn't random. It landed precisely when the show needed buzz, precisely when viewers were asking where the season 17 trailer was, and precisely when Real Housewives of Atlanta was facing a very real problem, declining viewership and declining audience excitement. And not just for Atlanta. The entire Housewives franchise has been slipping in live viewership numbers for years. Bravo can talk about streaming metrics and delayed viewing until they're blue in the face, but the truth is the live ratings tell a story, and the story is that fewer people care. And it doesn't help that the audience seems more excited about the possibility of Nene Leakes returning to Bravo in some capacity than they are about Atlanta returning without her. That alone should tell production everything they need to know. So when an exclusive drops about Porsha and Shamea nearly fighting in Scotland, with Drew playing referee, the very reasonable question becomes, is this organic tea or is this strategic rollout? Because this is how reality television works at the promotional level. Production sources leak to certain blogs, cast members leak to certain personalities, PR teams leak to specific outlets with specific audiences. They know who will run what, they know which platforms will get people talking, and sometimes that buzz is necessary, especially when a franchise needs to reignite interest. Now, that doesn't mean the Scotland fight didn't happen. It very well could have happened exactly as described, but the reality TV machine is sophisticated. Information doesn't just leak for sport, it leaks for strategy. And right now, the strategy is getting people to talk about season 17, and for better or worse, it's working. Let's zoom out again and talk about Shamea's role, because viewers were already divided about her season 16 performance. Not because she's a villain or a bad person, but because her presence felt off to a lot of people. Some viewers said she looked like she was performing for the camera in a way that felt uncomfortable, trying too hard, overly manufactured, almost cringy. Others thought she showed potential and just needed a season to adjust. But regardless of opinion, what was undeniable was that there was unfinished business between her and Porsha. And from a production standpoint, unfinished business is gold. Unresolved conflict means storyline continuation, and storyline continuation means there's a reason to bring someone back even if the audience is lukewarm. Then there was Angela from the after show who dropped a theory that stuck with viewers. She claimed Shamea played the long game, maintaining her friendship with Porsha not out of organic loyalty, but because she knew that friendship would eventually be her ticket onto Real Housewives of Atlanta, and once she secured a spot and had her peach, the friendship allegedly became disposable. Now, whether that's true is complicated because human relationships are complicated. Could Shamea have wanted to be on the show? Absolutely. Could that desire have influenced how she navigated her friendship with Porsha? Possibly. But does that mean their entire decades-long friendship was a strategic con? That's harder to claim without evidence. What's also true is that Porsha is not innocent in the downfall of their dynamic. Friendships don't disintegrate because of one person. They collapse under the weight of accumulated hurt, miscommunications, betrayals, insecurities, and unmet expectations, both real and imagined. Porsha carries responsibility just like Shamea does, but in the court of public opinion, narratives matter more than nuance, and right now, the narrative gaining traction is that Shamea used Porsha as a stepping stone. And speaking of narratives, Porsha has been busy shaping hers. Recently, she sat down with Entertainment Tonight and opened up about her season 17 storyline, her new relationship with a woman. She confirmed they were dating, confirmed it was exclusive, and talked about how good it felt to be in a relationship during cuffing season after spending over a year being alone during her divorce from Simon Guabbiata. She talked about numbness, loneliness, and survival, about emerging from heartbreak wanting to be true to who Porsha really is. She acknowledged dating on camera is a big deal, but said she's always been open, always been transparent on Housewives. Except that statement clashed directly with something Shamea said last season during one of their sit-down conversations. Shamea claimed Porsha had once told her that Bravo would have to pay her more money to show her true self on camera, meaning the Porsha viewers were getting wasn't the full Porsha, just the version that matched the check. When Shamea said that, the reaction was instant. People wondered what Porsha was hiding, what side she refused to show, and why the highest-paid cast member allegedly needed more money to be authentic. It cast a completely different light on Porsha's transparency.
However, before we fully ease into this conversation, go ahead and tap that like button if you haven't already done so, because you know I appreciate y'all supporting the channel and helping push the content out into the algorithmic abyss. And also, quick housekeeping note, just a reminder that our Life After Live event with Monique Samuels is going down January 25th, 2026. We are bringing in the new year the right way with intentional conversation, community, music, and a whole panel of guests we love. Jamie and Irina Tyler from Love and Marriage DC will be joining us, and Alfred and Sherelle Duncan, yes, that Sherelle Duncan from WPGC in the DMV, will also be in the building. There will be live music, there will be good energy, and there will probably be at least one moment where somebody says something that has the entire audience going, "Oop!" You do not want to miss it. But okay, housekeeping out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about why Porsha and Shamea are allegedly about to exchange words and maybe furniture. So picture this. I am literally in the car heading to the gym, thinking about my pre-workout, thinking about my playlist, thinking about the squats I'm about to pretend I enjoy, when suddenly I see a post pop up that completely derails my morning plans. And immediately I thought, hold up. Pause everything. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. We need to address this now, before the day even begins, because you cannot just scroll past Housewives brawl allegations like it's a weather update. That is disrespectful to the sport. So I pull the post up, I read it, and the headline, coming courtesy of Neighborhood Talk, who has been working overtime this year, says, Shamea and Porsha almost came to blows during their cast trip to Scotland, but Drew Sidora broke it up. Now, there is so much information in that one sentence to unpack. First of all, Scotland? Scotland! I did not have Bravo sending the Atlanta cast to Scotland on my 2026 bingo card. Portugal? Sure. Jamaica? Absolutely. Vegas? Always a possibility. But Scotland? That gives bagpipes, Highland cows, medieval castles, kilts, and whiskey tastings, not almost hands being thrown energy. So that already had my eyebrows raised. Second, Porsha and Shamea almost fighting.
Two women who were practically glued together for years now allegedly having heated exchanges so intense that the words "almost came to blows" are being used. That alone is wild. And then third, Drew Sidora being the one to step in and stop it. And that part might actually be the most shocking detail, because if someone had handed me a pen and asked me to write down the person most likely to break up a fight between Porsha and Shamea, Drew would not have been on that list. She wouldn't have been on my long list, she wouldn't have been on my short list, so we will definitely circle back to that. Once the article began circulating, the comment section lit up, as it always does when Atlanta housewives are involved. Some folks were clutching their pearls, others were taking sides, and others were just happy to see the franchise waking back up, because we have been in a bit of a drought waiting for season 17 content. And layered on top of all of this is the biggest question fans keep asking: where is the trailer? When is the premiere? Why is Bravo moving like they are allergic to promotion? And we will get into that too, because timing matters. Now, in order to understand why fans are so interested in this Porsha versus Shamea moment specifically, you have to zoom out and look at their history. For years, they were one another's sideline support, hype squad, emotional buffer, and co-signer. Porsha was always seen championing Shamea and vice versa, and that kind of friendship dynamic is rare, especially in a cast that cycles through alliances and frenemies every other season. When someone becomes associated with loyalty within a group that normally thrives on messy conflict, the audience forms an attachment to it. So when the cracks began to show, quietly at first and then gradually more publicly, people didn't want to believe it. And that's why I found it funny that some viewers and even some cast-adjacent folks tried to blame bloggers for manifesting a fallout between them. Like, sir, ma'am, respectfully, nobody manifested anything. We simply observed what was already visible to anyone paying attention. You could see the shift even in confessionals, in interviews, in who was being mentioned and who wasn't, in who showed up for life moments and who didn't, and in subtle changes in tone and energy. And I understand why some fans dismissed it for a while. It's hard to accept that a foundation can crack after so much time, especially when the cast dynamic is so heavily built on history.
But the reality is that not all friendships are built to survive television, public scrutiny, storyline demands, and shifting alliances. And sometimes, the thing that breaks a bond wasn't even one single moment. It was the accumulation of silent resentments, mismatched expectations, competing priorities, and maybe even jealousy or betrayal. So when we hear that things reportedly escalated to shouting matches in Scotland, but the reality is that not all friendships are built to survive television, public scrutiny, storyline demands, and shifting alliances. And sometimes, the thing that breaks a bond wasn't even one single moment. It was the accumulation of silent resentments, mismatched expectations, competing priorities, and maybe even jealousy or betrayal. So when we hear that things reportedly escalated to shouting matches in Scotland, that does not come out of nowhere. That is the natural endpoint of unresolved emotional debt. Now, the other layer of this story that the internet immediately jumped on was the wealth narrative. Under the neighborhood talk post, someone commented that Shamea lives in a $9 million home but chooses to fight on camera. Someone else shot back by noting that Porsha lives in Simon's $7 million home, so what's the point? And this conversation always pops up every time housewives throw shade, drinks, objects, or hands. People seem to have this belief that being wealthy automatically removes the desire or capacity for conflict. Like the minute your net worth hits a certain number, you become allergic to confrontation and suddenly fight with your words in iambic pentameter while sipping afternoon tea. And baby, that is not how human behavior works. If money was the cure for dysfunction, Beverly Hills would be the calmest franchise on Bravo, and it absolutely is not.
In fact, Beverly Hills alone has multiple iconic moments that prove wealth does not suppress chaos. We have watched Kyle Richards go at it with Brandi Glanville in Season 5. We watched Brandi slap Lisa Vanderpump, who at the time had swans living on her property and diamonds the size of grapes on her hand. We watched Lisa Rinna slam a glass on a table and lunge at Kim Richards, threatening to choke her out. We watched Erica Jane tell Sutton Strake she would go after her in front of a room full of wealthy women at a dinner party. And those women were all living behind gates, with elevators inside their homes and closets bigger than some apartments. So the argument that wealth stops you from fighting is not only wrong, it has been disproven repeatedly in cinematic HD by Bravo for 15+ years. But back to Shamea. One commentary thread I found genuinely interesting was viewers discussing how disappointed they were in her first season as a full-time cast member. And that reaction is not uncommon when someone transitions from a friend of role into a full-time position. It is a bigger leap than people realize. A friend of can coast, they can dip in and out. Their job is to support, not to carry. But once you become a peach holder, diamond holder, flute holder, snowflake holder, whatever symbol your city uses, your job changes. Now you need a storyline, conflicts, personal stakes, vulnerability, humor, and scenes filmed in your own home with your own family, not just reactions to someone else's drama. We saw Marlo Hampton struggle in her first years as a full-time housewife. We saw Kiana from PTOAC struggle. We saw Sonia Richards-Ross need time to find her lane. We have seen multiple housewives misjudge how much they need to share or how much energy they need to bring. And sometimes viewers don't even know what they want. They just know when they feel underfed. The second season is often where people adjust. The camera becomes less intimidating, the expectations become clearer, the cast finds their place in the group hierarchy, and from what Andy has hinted, Bravo still sees potential in Shamea, so we cannot rule out a sophomore glow-up season for her. Now, let's return to Drew Sidora, because this detail truly fascinates me. Drew stepping in to break up a near fight between Porsha and Shamea is a plot twist that none of us saw coming,